Welcome in to another Running with the Wolves post-game podcast. My name is Gabe Anderson. No Chris tonight, just going solo. Gonna go for about, 10, 15 minutes just to talk about tonight's matchup with the Orlando Magic. Of course, we are on the Believe Sports Network. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're listening later on Spotify, give us a 5-star rating and also leave your questions. We'd love to hear your opinion. So tonight, Minnesota Timberwolves, first night of a back-to-back, 1-3. They end up with the win, 113-92. And really, this game, for the most part, was over early. They had a 30-point lead at halftime, a 23-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and just kind of treaded water in the fourth quarter. Did hit some clutch shots in the fourth, which we'll talk about, but really treaded water in the fourth quarter. Let's start just with the negatives, though. Anthony Edwards, not great in this game. I think he only finished with 6 points, had a decent amount of turnovers. Let's find the official stats here for turnovers for Anthony Edwards, who has been on a tear recently. 6 points, 5 turnovers. When your turnover rate is only one away from your points rate, that's not a good night. Thankfully, the rest of the team picked up the slack. And the other negative is on Coach Chris Finch. Now, Paolo Banchero came out of this game with about 3 minutes left, and Finch had the opportunity, and I should mention about a 23, 24-point lead. Finch had the opportunity to take Rudy, Jaden, Ants all out of the game, and he didn't take the opportunity. The only guy he took out was Mike Conley. Come on, Coach. I know we took him out a minute or two later, but we don't know what's going to happen, and particularly on a back-to-back where you got to fly – I know they're talking about on the broadcast about 1,200 miles to Boston. Take your guys out when they take out their best player. Let's not risk injury. Let's not risk anything happening, because you've seen this NBA season has been riddled with injuries. You just saw Tyrese Halliburton out, Ja Morant out, and particularly to guards. So when you have an opportunity to take out your best players with a 24, 23-point lead with only a couple minutes left, do it. But that's just one critique on the Wolves. Other than that, everything was gravy. Now, I have been critical of Jaden McDaniels. I know we just signed him to the big contracts and everything, and I know it doesn't kick in until next season. He was great on Paolo Banchero tonight and hit a couple shots from the field as well. 6 for 10 for Jaden McDaniels, 2 for 5 from 3, 15 points, a team high plus 35 from the field. But what's really impressive, this guy Paolo Banchero, who's been averaging like 37 points a game in his last 3. Banchero's a team high minus 30 tonight, held him to 18 points, and a lot of that came after the Wolves were steadily ahead in the second quarter. Kept them 8-22 shooting, only 1-4 from 3. Did Jaden McDaniels, and a bounce back game for him, because I don't think you can play much worse than you did against Dallas. In fact, I was in Dallas at that game, and man, was that disappointing. Just no offense whatsoever out of Jaden McDaniels. A bounce back game for him tonight. Other players that played well, you got to talk about the big men. Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns, just dominant, particularly early on. I think they had their teams like first 20 or 21 points. Karl Anthony Towns played like an all-star tonight. I don't think he's going to get an all-star nod. Now, maybe with injuries he could get in, or players not playing in the all-star game, but he had an all-star game tonight. A plus 28, 28 points, 11 for 19 from the field, And the big stat, the thing that we've been telling Cat to do is shoot more from behind the 3-point line. Well, he did it tonight. Perfect. 5 for 5 from 3. And he also pulled in 6 boards, which is respectable. Also 5 assists on Cat. He had some good looks. He had one to Gobert. I think he had one to Anderson as well. Some nice looks out of Karl Anthony Towns. And then, of course, Rudy Gobert has pretty much an all-star level night as well. Again, I don't think he's going to make it either, just with some of the forwards in the Western Conference. But 21 points, a plus 13 from the field, 5 for 6 from the free throw line, 12 boards. He had a putback. And of course, what you want to see out of Rudy, which we haven't been seeing a lot, 3 blocks tonight for Rudy Gobert. An absolute great performance out of our big men. And speaking of big men, Naz Reid, his usual self tonight, 21 minutes, 13 points, 5 for 8 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and had 10 rebounds as well. So a double-double out of Naz Reid, just dominating performance out of him. Mike Conley, good as well. 11 points, a plus 23. Hit some timely threes, which he always does. 3 for 6 from behind the 3-point line. Doing 10 assists, so a double-double for him as well with assists. You just love to see it. But really, this was a make-or-break game for Jaden McDaniels. I've seen a lot of people, including myself, calling for the Wolves to trade Jaden McDaniels, maybe try to get a guard at the trade deadline, maybe questioning why we gave him all this money. Well, tonight he showed why, because he was all over Paolo Banchero. Just a great performance out of him tonight. And then Kyle Anderson, I think they said a stat on the broadcast saying that he had only 13 points in his last 6 games. Well, he has 11 points tonight, 4 for 6 from the field, 3 for 4 from the free throw line. If he can do that on a nightly basis, I got no problem with Kyle Anderson on this team. I think his only miss was from the 3-point line, or one of 2 misses was from the 3-point line. And then steady McLaughlin, Jordan McLaughlin, 2 for 3 from the field, 5 assists, just being a nice backup point guard. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, not a great game for him. 0 points, 0 for 5 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. I know he probably helped with the decent defense, but if he's not going to hit threes, not a lot of value out of Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now, a big factor in this game, of course, was that the Orlando Magic were low on a lot of their starters, like Wendell Carter Jr., Joel Ingles, Franz Wagner. So definitely a shorthanded Orlando team tonight, but you got to win. You got to play the games that are in front of you. And a nice one tonight by the Minnesota Timberwolves held really everyone other than Jalen Suggs and Paolo Banchero. And I guess Mo Wagner at the end as well. But other than those 3 guys, you had Queen with 11 points, but everyone else, I believe, was under 8 points. So a nice job on the others for the Timberwolves tonight. And you got to talk about the defense as well. Another team that the Wolves hold under 100 points, and a lot of the points that the Magic did score came the second half, held them to 37 points in the first half. Impressive there. Let's take a look at some of the team stats for tonight. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be all Minnesota here. Yep, from the field, 53% held the Magic to 36% from the field. For one of the best 3-point shooting teams, held them to 31% from behind the 3-point line. And just a great job doing that. Points in the paint was where this game was won, 60-38 for Minnesota. Of course, that contributes to the big games from Naz, Cat, and Rudy Gobert. Had a 34-point lead in this game, and just a dominant performance. You would have liked the Wolves to put it away a little earlier. Of course, the Magic are a scrappy young team that are going to fight until the end. But if you could have at least maybe had a 30-point lead. Oh, sorry about that. We got a little disturbance. Man, I hate how ESPN works where they just every time you click on something, it pops up a new video. I know that's how the algorithm works and how they get you to watch their videos, but it's just annoying. Anyway, just a great performance tonight from the Minnesota Timberwolves. The only black eye I would say is the 18 turnovers, and a lot of that coming from Ant. I would love to hear his post-game comments on his turnovers tonight, but we will let that slide for now. Of course, it's going to be a tough one tomorrow. Timberwolves take on the Boston Celtics on the road. Of course, earlier this year, the Timberwolves beat the Celtics by a score of no, well, they beat them in overtime. I was at that game. It was an amazing game. So a big game there. But a nice performance out of the Timberwolves. Got the starters out at least for a couple minutes at the end. And hey, Ant should be well rested at least because he did not play too many minutes tonight because of foul trouble and just because the Wolves were killing it. So hopefully a good night tomorrow against the Boston Celtics. You never know. They'll probably get into Boston around 3 a.m. or something like that, probably pretty late. It does help that it was an early game today, but an early game tomorrow as well. 6 o'clock, and we'll be here to cover it. This is the Running with the Wolves podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. And make sure to give us 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Podbean or whatever you're listening to. And as always, go Wolves.